2018 meeting of the Radnor Township Zoning Hearing Board. Our first matter is the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One quick point, if it's of interest to anyone who may be here, you may have noticed that one of the items on our agenda, Appeal 3017, relating to property at 1024 East Lancaster Avenue, that it was the variance for the medical dispensary. That application has been withdrawn, so there will be no activity regarding that item, and it's not been continued, rather, it's been withdrawn. So if you happen to be here for 1024 East Lancaster Avenue, that has been withdrawn. The first item in advance of the other four on our agenda is a request for an extension. Is there anyone here in connection with East Lancaster Avenue? Let me read into the record the item. The applicant, Scott Emerson, property located at 409, 411, and 413 East Lancaster Avenue, requests an extension of time for obtaining a permit under Section 280-144 of the zoning code for an additional 6 months. The board previously granted an extension of time through October 25th, 2018. The requested extension will extend to April 25, 2019. Council?
Good evening, Jamie Junn here on behalf of the applicant, Scott Emerson. Since we were last here, we have been working through the land development approval process. We finally received preliminary/final plan approval on August 13, 2018. We are now working towards meeting all of the conditions of approval. We hope to record the plan and then start working on obtaining building permits. So we are seeking an extension of time within which to obtain the building permit of 6 months, and we anticipate that we'd be able to do that, assuming we don't run into any issues with the sewer planning module.
Any members of the board have any questions of the applicant? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the applicant be granted the extension until April 25, 2019.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. You have your extension. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
May I have your name again, please? Township?
Jamie Junn, J-U-N, last
You have to spell everything.
name J-A-M-I-E, last name J-U-N.
J-U-N.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, as I indicated, has been withdrawn. That's item 4 on the revised agenda, appeal number 3017. Proceeding on, the next item is appeal 3020, 658 Glenwood Road. Is the applicant here? The applicant, Mohammed Khan, property located at 658 Glenwood Road and zoned R1-DM residential, seeks a variance from section 280-97B2 to construct an addition which will reduce a portion of the required side yard of 25 feet to 10 feet. Applicant's property was developed under a density modification development provisions of the code. Council.
Jamie Junn here on behalf of the applicant, Dr. Khan. I will just hand to the board some exhibits before I call my first witness. Since you've provided an introduction to the application, I won't repeat that. I'll just briefly go through what exhibits we have. Exhibit A1 is an aerial of the property and the surrounding properties. 658 Glenwood is marked with a red pin mark. A2 is a site plan which was included with our application, and you can see on the left-hand side there's a hatched 751 square foot addition for which we are seeking the relief. A3 is a rough sketch. Again, the hatched area is where the addition, the proposed addition is, but it shows you sort of the layout of what that addition would look like, and the architect will further explain the design and the need for that. Exhibit A4 is a photo of the front of the home, of the existing home. Exhibit A5 is a photo of the rear of the home. Exhibit A6 is a photo of the location of where the proposed addition will be located. To the right is the subject property, to the left is the immediately adjacent home. Exhibit A7 is a tax map with red indicators of all the neighbors who have signed a petition in support of the application, and second page of that are the signatures of the supportive of the neighbors. I have two witnesses. The first witness is Dr. Khan, who's the owner.
I will. My name is Muhammad Aslam Khan. Muhammad Aslamkhan.
Okay. When did you purchase the property?
We purchased it in 2007.
And you have resided at the property since then?
Yes.
And who currently reside in the home?
Well, it's our family, so it's me, my wife, my mother-in-law, and my two sons who are in college, but they visit us. It's me, my wife, my mother-in-law who is disabled, and my two sons who are in college, but they come in and stay with us in their breaks.
And can you explain to the board why you're seeking to construct an addition to the existing home?
Yeah. My mother-in-law, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease like a year ago, and since then she has become more and more disabled. So she has mobility issues, and we are in a home which is split level. So we have 3 levels in the house. The bedrooms are all on the 3rd floor. So basically, what happens is that she is more or less confined to her room because of mobility issues, because she's almost like bed-bound and wheelchair-bound, and she has developed contractures and she has bad arthritis. So moving her in and out of the room is really quite painful for her and cause a lot of distress. And it basically has isolated her in her room alone, and she cannot be part of the family. You know, she cannot move out of her room because of the limitations in terms of her mobility. And we have multiple stairs, so in order to move her down from the 3rd floor to the main area, we have to put her in a wheelchair, and then both of us have to literally lift her and then, you know, bring her down. So it becomes really difficult to move her. And in addition, you know, we have a caretaker who is usually home when both of us are at work, and usually she's home about 10 to 12 hours a day until one of us is home. And there is, you know, there is enough room. We don't have enough room for her, so there is really sort of no separate room for her or privacy for her, because you know, when the kids are around and we are around, it becomes very crowded. Everybody is on the top floors. So we like to seek an addition where we like to provide her a main bedroom, a bedroom on the main floor with access to a handicap bathroom, because right now it's very hard to move her in and out of the bathroom because we can't take the wheelchair in, and we have to lift her, and then, you know, we have a tub there, a bathtub. We don't have a shower area where we can put the wheelchair. So it becomes really distressing and painful for her. And so we like to have a bedroom with access to a disabled bathroom on the main floor, and also like to have a place for the caretaker, because at some point I think we would like to have a full-time caretaker, because, you know, both of us leave early in the morning, so one of us has to stay back until somebody arrives, and in the evening at nighttime when she has her requirements and needs, my wife has to get out of the bed in the middle of the night to take care of her. And then in the morning, she has to get up early in order to clean her and change her and then give her breakfast before she leaves around like 7 o'clock in the morning. So it becomes really sort of quite difficult for us to manage. So we just like to provide her with a space where she can access the living areas, the kitchen, and the dining areas, and be part of the family and engage into daily activities. Because right now, I think she has her moments when she becomes quite agitated and restless and very lonely. So I think we just want to make sure that there's a place where she can be part of the family and can move into the kitchen and dining area and sit with us. And we would like to have a place where she can she can go outdoors and access the bathroom without any problems.
And have you spoken to your neighbors about the proposed addition?
Yes, I have. And all of them are quite supportive, and nobody has objections to this.
That's all of my questions.
Do any members of the board have any questions for this witness?
Just how many steps to get from your main floor to your third floor?
It's about 7.
And the architect will get into a little bit
Okay.
more to kind of explain the different
Sure,
levels in the home.
thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Thank you.
My next witness is Aaron Boyd from Gardner Fox. He's the project architect.
Please be sworn in.
I will. My name is Aaron Boyd, Aaron. Last name is Boyd, Boyd.
Could you state your occupation and position with Gardner Fox?
So I'm an architect with Gardner Fox. I've been with the company for 13 years, and I oversee the design department as project architect.
And are you familiar with Dr. Khan's property?
Yes, I was at the site survey and measured the house and took photographs.
And why have you been engaged?
The client asked us to provide them with a plan to for an accessible living space to accommodate his mother-in-law.
And could you describe for the board the existing home and the difficulties associated with the existing home?
So the existing house is a modest-sized split-level house. If you look at the rest of the neighborhood, you can see it's one of the smaller houses. And with all the different level changes in the split level, it makes it difficult to get from one level to another. So I have a couple plans here. I have the site plan. I also have an architectural plan that should be in your packet. I don't know if I can put it on the camera here or not. But
Whatever you put on that table will be visible.
Okay.
I think if you can go through the sketch plan.
Okay.
And then kind of explain to the board, there was the question about what stairways are in the home. So if you can kind
Sure,
of point out
yeah.
the areas where the level changes.
Well, this first one is the overall site plan.
That's,
Right.
yeah, A2.
Correct.
So this is, I could go through this and then the architectural plan. So this is the front of the house toward the neighborhood. There's also another front yard, which is, there's a setback off Bryn Mawr Avenue. So it's 2 parallel front yards. But this is the one that's part of the development. With the setbacks the way they are, there's limited space to do in addition on the front of the house. This is about a 15 by 20 foot space inside the setback. It also, if there was an addition in the front, it would be disruptive to the view from the front, from the street. So what we were planning to do is with how we would tie this addition into the existing house would be to just simply extend this roof line across. So it'd be very, very much a minimal impact aesthetically to the front. The other challenge in the back of the house is there's a beautiful deck, a pergola, a patio, and so to build an addition in this area, we'd have to demolish some of these existing structures that are there, and also the common area of the house, the kitchen, dining, and living area, which I can show you on the next plan, are adjacent. It would cut off the views toward the backyard. So we'd have to do some major internal reorganization to get the addition to work. So we thought the least disruptive would be to look at maybe going off the side of the house.
Is it also accurate that on the front yard toward Bryn Mawr Avenue, that there's a sewer easement that would be problematic to build over?
Yes, there is a sewer easement there.
But that's not within the building envelope, is that correct?
No, the building envelope's this dotted line.
I'm making that point as further explanation for the proposed location as compared with other locations which might be technically in compliance with the code.
Why do you have the addition going further than the rear of the house?
Oh, so I wanted to point that out, yes.
Yeah, you better.
So
It's a den, so.
I was gonna turn to the next page. So
That would be Exhibit A3.
let me orient this. This was kind of more like the site plan, I guess. So this additional piece that's in the back, which I think you're referring to, is a 12 by 16 foot 4 sunroom piece. So the actual living space would just stay contained within the width of the existing building here. So what that produces is about 12.5 by 13.5 foot bedroom den, which could also be a bedroom for a caretaker, and then a 7 by 8 wheelchair accessible bathroom. So this sunroom piece is just a means for her to be closer to some of the outside activities, but underneath of a sunroom structure. So if everyone's hanging out on the deck, this would kind of be adjacent to that. But this is this isn't a four-season room. It's more of a outdoor enclosed structure, so it's not heated or cooled.
When you say outdoor enclosed structure, how high do the walls go?
Well,
Is it screened? Is it windowed? What are we looking at here?
well, it hasn't been fully designed yet, but it would have a roof and it has walls, and I was imagining
the full height.
It would go up to the same height as the cornice line of the existing building. That's the lower section of the building.
So I think the question that we're asking is obviously when we're looking for a variance, we have to get the minimum relief necessary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why you want to put a bedroom and a bathroom on the same floor. Helps mobility. See also why you might want to have another bedroom for the caretaker. Don't see why you need another room for accommodation purposes. So help me understand what the hardship is for that, other than it looking really good.
We do want to give her, the main purpose of this is to give Dr. Khan's mother-in-law a better quality of life. And obviously, the bedroom, the accessible bathroom, and then the additional space for the caretaker would help that. We would also like for her to be able to access the outdoor area as opposed to being confined to the home. And this will allow her to have easy access to the deck or the sunroom as opposed to having to navigate through, the dining room, the sitting room in order to access the existing deck. And that would just be the purpose of it.
But this is giving more than access. I mean, if you want to give access, it could be as wide as a door, and,
Sure.
I mean, you could have it 3 feet wide, and, you know, there's many ways to give access, and obviously accommodating through the dining room would be one of them.
Right.
So, I mean, again, I don't want to be tough here, but, you know, that is our rule, it's a minimum relief necessary. So, do you have anything else? Anything other than it would be great for her to be able to go out that way versus in the dining room,
I mean, quite
Although-
frank,
from a medical perspective?
Although,
or anything?
well, I mean, to the extent this is to be looked at under the Fair Housing Act, the question isn't hardship so much as what is necessary to provide a reasonable accommodation.
That is correct. The Fair Housing Act, succinctly permits variances that otherwise would not be authorized under hardship standards of Pennsylvania law.
correct. And I also think because this is a dimensional variance as opposed to a use variance, it's not that very hard test of unnecessary hardship. But again, you know, the addition itself is minimal. We did take a look at that, and all the rooms have been sized. And this matches up with the existing outdoor deck, and that's just the purpose of it. We think that this would be a reasonable accommodation of his mother-in-law.
And was any consideration given to trying to fit the addition into the building envelope and foregoing the need for a variance? Because while I understand that there's a deck and a pergola at the back of the house, that's also buildable space that would not require a variance. So I'd be interested to know if there was consideration given to alternate designs that would have used that space instead of a design that calls for a variance.
Well, if we were to build in this area, it would cut off access to the back for the kitchen and dining.
I prefer to 85, because that is a good picture of the back.
Yeah, that's a good picture.
And when you're looking at a variance, you can consider the building itself, and for us, that's really the hardship that we have here. We do have a split-level home, and Aaron hasn't gone into all of the different level changes within the home, but there's an existing home with valuable improvements, and that's part of our hardship, that we have this home that's not accessible, and we're trying to accommodate someone who has a disability.
Now we're mixing standards of consideration. Are you proceeding under hardship, or are you proceeding under fair housing? Because it could be argued that there's more flexibility under one than the other, but if you're kind of you're not conflating the issues, but
Sure.
you're borrowing concepts from one in discussing the other.
And I think we will be seeking relief under both. I mean, the Fair Housing Act provides for a reasonable accommodation of, you know, a disabled person, a handicapped person, and we do have that there. But even just looking at this as a pure variance, but again, this is a dimensional variance. And when it's a dimensional variance, you kind of look at all of the circumstances. And we are looking at all of the circumstances, which consist of the existing home, which we believe is the cause of, you know, the hardship. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we had a home that could accommodate his mother-in-law without this addition. And so we're looking at all of the elements and, you know, the other elements that go along with the dimensional variances. Is there a negative impact? And I think this is a location where there isn't a negative impact.
If you refer to the first photo on A4, you can see the kind of how some of the grading works. So the low point is on this side of the house where the garage is, and grade starts to climb on Glenwood going up this way, and this is the window to the living room. So the least grading difference to the house is on this side of the house. So the plan is there's a roof line here, and to simply just extend that roof line over. You can also see there's a There's a tree that's in the front. If we were to build in the front, we have to take this humongous tree out. There's also some existing vegetation that screens the house from the neighbor over here.
Aaron, do you know the house well enough to be able to answer the prior question regarding the numbers of steps that separate different levels? And if so, could you answer that question?
So I am familiar. Like Dr. Khan said, there's about 7 or 8 steps for each one of these runs in the split level. I didn't draw the rest of the plan because although we've surveyed this, we wanted to go through the first step of going through the zoning hearing. But yes, each one of these runs has about 7 or 8 steps, depending on which way you're going up.
And then there's also 2 or 3 steps as you enter the home, correct?
Yes.
So there's a level change from the front door to get to the living room that's shown there.
Yeah, so there's a step from the walkway up onto this front porch, and then there's step up into the house, and then there's a couple more steps inside the foyer.
Correct. And then there will be 7 or 8 stairs to get you to the level where all of the bedrooms and the bathrooms, the main bathrooms, are located, correct?
Yes.
And then there would be another set of 7 or 8 stairs that would get you down to another common family room.
Right, and most of the lower level is taken up by the garage, and then there's a family room which is on this side with a powder room and a laundry kind of in the middle. So most of if you're having eating activities, having people over, family gatherings, this is kind of the main hub of the house. So this addition would be kind of off of that hub.
Thank you. Are there other items that the board members would like this witness to address? Hearing none.
And I would just like to cover again, because I am approaching this in the 2 separate ways where this is a reasonable accommodation, but also a variance to the extent necessary. There are certain standards for review in the code, and I just want to go through those standards and make sure that we meet those. Are the size, scope, extent, and character of the request consistent with the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
And just to expand that on a little bit further, if you look at the comprehensive plan, obviously there isn't a great deal that applies to something like this directly, but there is mention of needing to accommodate the seniors in the township. And I think this is one of the ways to do that, where you do want to provide for accommodation in existing homes for the seniors of the township. And does it promote the harmonious and orderly development of the R1 and DM district?
Yes.
And will the proposed addition be appropriate and consistent with the character and type of development in the surrounding area?
Yes, even with the addition built to this home, if you look at the rest of the neighborhood, it would be about the same size as the other houses, because this is one of the smallest houses.
And does the proposed addition have any adverse impact on the public health, safety, or welfare?
No.
That's all of my questions for Aaron.
Okay. Do you have any other witnesses?
No.
You want to move your exhibits for admission?
Sure, I will do that. I would like to move my exhibits for admission.
Okay, so submit it. Is there anyone else in the audience here who wishes to be heard on this item? Seeing none, to promote our board discussion, I welcome a motion.
If I may just add a couple more comments, and this is
Yes,
directed
Counsel,
to the
sorry.
photos that we
I
had.
did not mean to cut you off. Go
Oh, no,
ahead.
that's okay. And this is for the photos. As Aaron had previously explained, if you see A4, that is the front of the home. And it will just be a 10-foot extension off of that, and the roof line will be carried over. So a lot of that will be shielded from view from the streetscape, and that is something that we had considered, the overall impact and visuals of that addition. And if you look at Exhibit A5, again, there are a lot of valuable improvements to the rear of the home that would need to be disturbed. And for the most part, the homes in this stretch, there is a large rear yard. Again, it functions as a rear yard, but in fact, it is the front yard. So there is a lot of open space there that we will be maintaining. Exhibit A6, again, shows the location of the proposed addition, and there are current plantings that are there, and Dr. Khan is more than happy to supplement that if needed. But the neighbor immediately to the left, if you see, it's a two-story building, but he actually has his garage and driveway on that side, and he does not have any windows on that side. So in terms of any visual impact to the neighbors, I mean, this is also the minimum in that he wouldn't be disturbing any views. And again, this is immediately adjacent to his driveway.
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Motion? We could sit here all night.
I don't know why I'm the primary mover here, but I would like to move that the applicant be granted the relief requested in the application, not on the basis of hardship, but on the basis of a reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'd second that.
All right, now let's discuss. Anybody want to?
Yeah. Again, I think the 2 bedrooms and the bathroom are absolutely the accommodation that is needed here. I don't think the solar room is necessary under a hardship or in a reasonable accommodation. There's no, you have access through a dining room. That's kind of my point. So that's where I am. I have absolutely no problem with the 2 bedrooms and the bath. I do have a problem with the solar room. I just don't, I think that's just, they're adding it on because they're asking for a 15 or a 10-foot side yard setback, and they can go in as far as the steps. So I just don't think it's necessary.
I disagree with you. I think what we're balancing here is reasonable accommodation versus other considerations, including impact on health, safety, welfare, impact on the neighborhood. I find it very helpful and persuasive that they introduced Exhibit A7 with the expressions of support from the neighbors. I note that no neighbors came out in opposition. So that's significant to me in balancing. I think the point you make is a fair one, but I think it's a matter of balance between their desire to provide quality of life for the individual impacted as against the breadth of the relief and how that might impact the neighborhood. So that's why I come out on the other side of that question. Any other questions or any other comments or discussion among the members? Seeing none, I'm going to call a vote. There is a motion to approve the relief under the Fair Housing Act standards. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Motion passes 3-1. You have your relief. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Yes, in other words, you were okay with the solar room is the only problem.
Next item on the agenda, Appeal 3021. The applicant, KMO 361 Realty Associates LLC, property located at 550 East Lancaster Avenue and zoned PB, seeks relief from Section 280-123B of the code to permit installation of one wall sign in excess of 60 square feet and 2 wall signs higher than 15 feet above the existing grade. Welcome.
Good evening. George Brosman. I'm representing KMO 361 Realty Associates, LLC. They're the owner of the St. David Square Shopping Center. I just have some brief remarks, and then I have 2 witnesses, Ken Marshall, who's with the owner, and Rob Lambert, the civil engineer. Should I proceed with my opening
Please.
remarks? Thank you. The property is primarily located in the PB Planned Business District. There are small parts of the property around the perimeter that are still zoned residential. sort of acts as a de facto buffer area. It's about 24 acres, and of course, it's developed with a shopping center. It's got over 220,000 square feet of floor area. I believe it's the largest shopping center in Radnor Township, and of course, its overall health and viability is important to the owner and the other tenants, but I would also submit to the township. A significant amount of the space in the shopping center is contained within one large two-story building that was originally built as a department store. I believe it was the B. Altman department store, which is now defunct. As you may know, the lower level of this building that faces Lancaster Avenue has a vacancy. That vacancy was created by the closing of the Bed Bath & Beyond store that was there many years. We're here this evening seeking to facilitate occupying the vacant Bed Bath & Beyond space with two new retail tenants that would divide the space. Specifically, these tenants are called HomeSense and Old Navy. They're retailers. And to that end, we're requesting dimensional variances for 2 wall signs for those tenants, and they would be located on the front of the building. The location and configuration of the former department store building, the very large setback from Lancaster Avenue, and the grade difference between Lancaster Avenue and the shopping center work to limit visibility for these retail tenants. As a result, both of these tenants have requested that the owner seek approval to have their signs go up a little higher on the building than the 15 feet that's allowed in the PB district. And at least as to one of the signs for the HomeSense, to be larger than the 60 feet if you calculate and include the background area. And we have plans of these signs. I believe as the testimony will show, these sign regulations have a one-size-fits-all approach for the size and for the height of the wall signs. In particular, Code 28123B limits the size of any wall sign to 60 feet per business, and the height is limited to 15 feet without regard to the physical characteristics of a site or a building. No consideration is given to the size of the building, the size of the space to be occupied by the business, the size of the property, topographical conditions, or setbacks. All the kinds of things that variance relief is designed for, which brings us here this evening. And our witnesses will go over some of the unique physical circumstances that we believe we have. I have an exhibit package, if I could hand it up.
Please do. Thank you.
And I would like to go ahead and have Rob Lambert come up and be sworn in and testify.
And sir, if you will raise your right hand, do you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name, please.
Rob Lambert.
For the record, I've handed out this exhibit package. Exhibit A1 is the deed, and my next witness will identify that. So we're going to skip right to Exhibit A2. Rob, is that a summary of your professional experience and qualifications?
Yes, it is.
And could you briefly describe that?
Yes, I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Notre Dame and a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from Villanova University. I'm a registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
I'd like to have Rob admitted as an expert in civil engineering.
Accepted. Thank you.
Rob, are you familiar with the St. David Shopping Center and the general area?
Yes, I am very familiar.
And drawing your attention to Exhibit A3 in our exhibit packs, and we're putting up a larger version here. Is this an aerial photograph that depicts the site and the general area?
Yes. I can orient you. So Lancaster Avenue goes from the upper left to the lower right, and so that's Lancaster Avenue. The subject parcel, you can see, is roughly in the center of the page. You can see the different roof tones are kind of like a tan and a white. The B. Altman building was the main building in the center. which is shown there. You can see the parking lots on the front and the back. The front parking lot's actually at a lower level. The rear parking lot is at an upper level. And so in the early 90s, when this was redeveloped, the upper level had Gennardi's, which is now Giant, in the upper level, and a tenant space that was further to the east. So the right of the page is to the east. And on the lower level, originally there were two large tenant spaces. It was TJ Maxx and Bed Bath & Beyond. Bed Bath & Beyond is now gone. In the upper left of the site is a outbuilding. It has 4 smaller tenant spaces in it. So there's 4 small tenant spaces there. Toward Lancaster Avenue from the main building, and to the east is the PNC Bank building, and then to the east is a larger building with Micro Center. There's an existing entrance on the east side, which is the main entrance in between Micro Center and the PNC Bank, which is a traffic light. And on the western side, there's also a traffic light with a secondary entrance going up the western part of the property. Across the street is Brandywine property. I think that's a 6 or 7 story building. On the ground floor, that's where Fleming's is, and I forget what the new restaurant there is. But and then at the corner to the right is the Radnor Hotel.
And for the record, in the exhibit packages, on the smaller version of the aerial, we've marked in a red outline the general location of the shopping center. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And turning to Exhibit A4, is this a site plan that your office prepared that depicts existing conditions?
Yes, Exhibit A4 is a site plan.
And I won't have you rehash the existing conditions that you described. Is there anything existing condition-wise that this plan shows that you haven't already covered?
Yes, so this plan has a dimension line on the front that shows that this building is about 300 feet from the right-of-way line of Lancaster Avenue. So the B. Altman's building sat pretty far back with the large parking field in the front. I believe a 100-foot setback is what the code requires, so we're roughly 3 times the code requirement. This also, if you look closely, has contour lines, and in the front there are actually 5-foot contour intervals, so you can see from Lancaster Avenue to where the parking area is 8 to 10 feet right in front of the building where the dimension line is, and then going across the parking lot is another 10 feet or so up to the building. So there's a significant grade change from the building to Lancaster Avenue.
And does this plan also show some trees that are on the site?
Yes, it does. So you can see the small dots with a irregular outline are the trees represented.
And are there sidewalks along Lancaster Avenue?
Along both sides of Lancaster Avenue, there's a sidewalk through this section.
Turning to Exhibit A5 is a series of photographs that were taken today, and they have a letter on each photograph. Could you describe these photographs for the board, referring to the letter?
Yeah, so A5A, and I'm going to use Exhibit A4 also to describe it, is standing on the sidewalk on the building side or the property side of Lancaster Avenue in front of let's see here, in between, about halfway in between where the PNC Bank and the outbuilding is. And so out on Lancaster Avenue, looking back toward the building, on the right-hand side of Exhibit A5A, you can see the front of that outbuilding in the kind of a gold color. And then you see a large white building going across, and that is the upper level of the subject building.
Okay.
A5B was moving a little bit west down the sidewalk. So again, what you're seeing there, which you can see the sign for Roast and Chop. And so look, you can see the sign, and that sign is right on the, right on the side of the outbuilding that I referred to on facing Lancaster Avenue is the sign Roast and Chop. And again, you can see the white expanse of the upper level of the building. Of note is the bottom of that white section of the building is just under 17 feet, just to give a perspective of height.
Quick question, because I forget. Was there a sign on that facade for Bed Bath & Beyond?
Yes, I believe it was on the east end, and let me see if I have a picture. A later exhibit will be able to show you where that sign was.
Please continue, I don't want to interrupt you.
So A5C is now from the north corner of the western intersection, so on the opposite side of Lancaster Avenue, looking back toward the site. You can see obviously the traffic light. There's a monument sign, and you can see the white area there in the background. Of note in this is it's very hard to see actually that first floor level, and again, that bottom of that white area is about just under 17 feet off grade. So A5D is going further west. Now we're back on the same side of Lancaster Avenue as the building. Looking back up to the building, of note in this is you can't even see the first floor of the building in this photograph.
So the sign would not be visible?
Correct. So I believe this was E, yes, A5E. So now this is the opposite side of Lancaster Avenue looking back at the building. You can see the stone area on the left-hand side of the building. So on the right is the white area that we referred to in the previous photographs. Here you can see a little bit of the stone area. The Bed Bath & Beyond sign was located on that stone area when it was installed, and I can't remember if it was the right or the left-hand side, but it was on that stone area. A5F is a photograph standing on Lancaster Avenue looking west, and what this is just depicting is the grade change right along Lancaster Avenue there, showing how much higher the parking lot is than the road of Lancaster Avenue. A5G is you're actually in the site. This is actually in the P&C drive-through lanes. So if you're roughly in the site looking back toward the building, again, the landmark in all of these is the white area of that second floor. You can see that actually projects out from the face of the building. So anything underneath that 17 feet is really underneath and within that building at that point. And this is what A5H shows. You can see how the building projects out from the main door area. So the doors are in line roughly with a stone facade area, and you can see how the upper portion of the building projects out at that point.
Now, before you spoke about the 17 feet height, so is that photo showing the 17-foot area you were speaking of?
So the bottom of that area where it projects is approximately 17, I think it was 16 feet 9 inches above grade.
And you can see in that photo that overhang does cast quite a shadow in that area.
Correct. So this is A5I. So this is standing roughly in front of the outbuilding with the smaller stores, looking back toward the building. Again, the white area there at the top, you can see the lower area tucked in below. What's interesting in this is, and you'll see in a subsequent photo, is there is actually the TJ Maxx sign that sits underneath there that you can barely see.
Do you know that if that's in conformity with?
I believe it is. And so in A5J, behind the small tree that's there, and I can't really say that that's a big tree, but behind the small tree you can see the letters for the TJ Maxx that are sitting underneath that overhang back into, the main part of the building.
Rob, based on the conditions that you've been showing, do you have an opinion as to whether the physical conditions of this property impact the visibility of the signage that would be permitted on the facade of this building?
Yes, I think the photographs clearly demonstrate that the way the building is situated on the site, the topography from Lancaster Avenue, and all the sight lines that, the limitations of the code would really, the signage has limited use.
And in your opinion, is this a unique property in the general area, and for that matter, the township, when it comes to signage issues?
Yes, I don't really think there's any other properties in the township that have quite the, you know, kind of the larger stores. I think the sign ordinance was more written for more of your village stores, where you don't have, you know, a building that sits back 300 feet from the road and is at a different elevation and difficult to see. So I really think that the ordinance wasn't written toward this property, and I think this property is unique in the township, having the large commercial retail center.
And do you have any thoughts about the fact that it was originally designed as a department store and had to be converted for multiple use, how that impacts things?
I'm not a retail expert, but when it was one store, it was really a destination. People knew B. Altman, that's what was there. Now that you have multiple stores, I think the signage needs are very different, and you know, converting that and updating it to current standards, the retailers, with all the competition between the King of Prussia Mall and online retailers, I think that signage is very important.
And Mr. Marshall's going to go into the specifics, but are you generally familiar with the proposed signs?
I am.
And based on your familiarity with the center and the surrounding area, do you believe the proposed signs would be out of character with the surrounding area?
No, and in fact, we went to the Design Review Board, and the Design Review Board felt that the scale and I guess aesthetic of the signs was acceptable. They noted that we would need zoning relief, but they did note that if we received the zoning relief, we didn't need to go back to them for approval, that they would accept the signs as we presented.
In your professional opinion, would there be any detrimental impact if the board were to grant the relief requested?
No.
That's all I have for Rob.
Any of the members of the board have questions for this witness?
How old is the center?
I can tell you from the, it was redeveloped in the early 1990s. I don't know how long it went back before that. Right.
The Altmans was there in 1970, I know that.
I have two questions. The first one is obviously the sign that is on C, Exhibit C, in 5, is really the sign that alerts people that are driving by that the store is there. So meaning this is not really a directional sign. You're not looking at it saying, oh, people driving by going, oh, there it is.
The monument sign.
Yeah, because there's two of them. There's one near the PNC Bank and one there. That's one. Two, why isn't TJ Maxx on this variance? Because they seem to be doing well with a lower sign. I would have thought that you would have come in saying, give me TJ Maxx, give me HomeSense, give me Old Navy.
Ken can answer this, but we talked about this before, I guess as an applicant, we always want to ask for the least we need, and as far as I know, TJ Maxx isn't asking, but,
Well, it kind of counters your argument that there's a hardship
Right.
if TJ Maxx doesn't need it, right? Because there's an
Well-
existing place that is doing
well, we don't know. We hope they stay in business. Bed Bath & Beyond had a similar sign, and they met with not a good fate.
If
So-
it was Radnor's wall sign, that was the problem. They got a bigger problem on their hands, but. okay.
But I
Okay.
think the
That's just a
testimony
question.
from Ken will be that in today's retail market, these retailers need, more
Sure.
help than ever. And we don't know if TJ Maxx will survive. We hope they do.
Get them a new sign.
That would help.
Any other questions for this witness?
Ken? You have to be sworn in.
And if you raise your right hand, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth,
I do.
and state your full name, please.
Kenneth Marshall.
Please keep the mic up.
Okay.
Ken, with whom are you employed?
Olshan Properties,
And how long have you been with Olshan?
a little over 2 years.
And at Exhibit A1, is that a copy of the deed for the property?
It is, yes.
And it references the owner as KMO 361 Realty Associates LLC. Is that entity affiliated with Olshan?
It is, so owners of Olshan are joint venture partners of the KMO entity, and Olshan Properties is the property manager for the KMO ownership.
And what's your job title?
I'm head of retail and head of development for Olshan Properties.
And is this property part of your responsibilities?
It is.
Generally speaking, can you describe the difficulties in leasing vacant retail spaces in today's market?
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's any secret that bricks and mortar stores have faced some struggles over the last couple of years. We've had bankruptcies of some pretty high-profile tenants, such as Toys R Us, Sports Authority on the larger side. Some department stores have declared bankruptcy, as well as some smaller stores that have declared bankruptcy. Some of them going out of business, and some of them restructuring their debt, closing significant numbers of stores. So, yes, I mean, I think overall, physical retail is struggling in this day and age.
And is it your opinion that tenant identification and visibility through signage is critical to leasing and ultimate success for the retail tenants?
It is. Our tenants tell us that all the time, that they're very concerned about the visibility of their signage. They want to make sure that their customers know where their store is, where their entry to the store is. And concerned about sort of projecting their brand to their customers.
And did you hear the testimony of Rob Lambert?
I did.
Do you agree with his assessment of the physical conditions and how they affect the signage here?
I do. I think generally the site, the dimensionality of where the building is in relationship to the road, the landscaping on the site, the construct of the building with the first floor being in shadow all contribute to hardship conditions.
And at Exhibit A6 in our packet, is that a copy of the elevations that are showing these signs on the building?
Yes, that is.
And could you generally describe what is proposed?
So for the two tenants that are going into what was one single tenant, which was formerly Bed Bath & Beyond, each of them desire to have a facade that would be constructed for them. The Old Navy is essentially a white stucco facade with some blue aluminum fins, and then the sign would be mounted to those fins. And then the HomeSense facade, again, an area that would designate their entry, and then a green box that then their sign would sit upon that green box.
And does this exhibit contain the details of the height of these signs and the sizes?
It does.
And is it, well, my understanding, the top of the HomeSense sign would be 28.5 feet?
That's correct. That's the top to the top of the green box.
Okay. And how about the Old Navy sign? What height are we requesting to go for the top height?
23.5 feet to the top of the Old Navy sign.
And with regard to the Old Navy sign, the size of that is in compliance, correct?
That's correct. It's under 60 square feet.
And with regard to the HomeSense sign, if you count the whole green area, which I believe is technically what is to be done, what's the size of that sign?
The size of that sign is 169 square feet, so that's the size of the green box. The actual letters are in compliance. They're 60 square feet if you calculate the area of the two lines of words.
And does this exhibit, we won't go into the numbers unless the board wants, but does this exhibit show the overall size of the facades of these users and the building, just to give the board an idea of the large size of the facade compared to the relatively small size of the signs?
It does. I think generally you would say that the signs are not a significant percentage of the facade sign, the facade size.
and not to venture too far into aesthetics, but if you look at the photos of the large gray overhang, for instance, A5A, do you feel that putting some signs on that large gray expanse will actually help to break up the scale of that and make it have a better feel?
I do. I think in working with these two tenants, we've tried to upgrade the image of the shopping center, provide a more contemporary architectural treatment of the center. I think the Design Review Board appreciated that when we met with them several months ago. And we've been very involved with working with the tenants on the size of their signage and the location of their signs to designate their entries, and also working with them on the size, which they would prefer to be larger, but obviously we're trying to come in with sort of the smallest size sign that they find acceptable.
And how strongly do they feel that they need these signs?
We've been working with these tenants for several months now, since the spring. We've talked to them a lot about the size of the signage, and we've worked with them significantly to reduce the size of the signage. They've told us that if we don't get approval, that they're likely not to proceed with the leases that we've negotiated.
So in your opinion, are these the minimum size signs that are needed to address the hardship?
Yes.
And based on your experience with all of your retail work for the holdings of the company, do you feel these are out of character or inappropriate for the shopping center or the area?
No, I do not. I think overall the development that we're proposing for these two tenants is an upgrade for the shopping center. It provides a more contemporary look, and I think it's appropriate for the center and the area.
That's all I have for Ken.
How are the signs proposed to be lit?
So they're essentially both going to be channel letters. The Old Navy is channel letters that are internally illuminated inside the letters, and then the HomeSense is similar. So the HomeSense has a green box. There would be an illumination around the perimeter of the green box. The green box is non-illuminated, it's aluminum, and then there are illuminated letters mounted to the face of the green box.
And the point you made toward the end of your presentation, the leases are not yet signed?
We have one lease in escrow that is pending this hearing, and then we have one lease that we're negotiating.
Okay. Other questions, members of the board?
Yeah, I have a question about the HomeSense space. That is a new facade that's being constructed east of where the large gray, whatever it is.
That's correct.
So, and turning your attention to Exhibit A5H, is that section of the site more visible than the section of the site that is under the gray overhang? I see a number of photographs that would suggest that the stone portion of the structure is more readily visible from wherever you want to view it from than perhaps the Old Navy site. Is that a fair statement?
I'd say that the visibility of the stone facade varies from your location on the site. So if you're in the parking lot closer to where the multi-tenant building is and you're looking back towards that direction, I would suspect that the landscaping would shield the visibility of that facade, the stone facade. It's more visible in this picture.
But that entire facade is being newly constructed as opposed to the Old Navy site where you're affixing something to it and existing.
Correct.
Is the new construction intended to extend toward the parking lot the same distance as the existing wall, or is it out further, is it out less?
It is, do you have that on that plan? It does extend out in front of the building some, but not all the way to the edge of the existing white concrete box.
And that's shown on A4.
Yeah, it looks like A4, the exhibit A4 does show the extent of the new facade is at this location here, and the facade of the existing building is out in front of that several feet.
I'm sorry. So where there is currently, I guess, planting and some portion of sidewalk.
Correct, right. There's some plantings that are being removed in that area to accommodate the new entry for the HomeSense store. So the plane of this facade is not at the same plane as the existing building facade. It's set back several feet.
What of, well, is it fair to say that some of the lack of visibility of these two particular properties, given their easternmost location on this structure, is it fair to say that some of the lack of visibility is a function of the fact that there's a PNC Bank in the way?
I mean, certainly PNC Bank is there.
This goes to, you created the hardship by building the PNC Bank.
It's really where that is located, where the PNC Bank is located, is actually a much more substantial grade change from Lancaster Avenue. So that whole end of the site, the reason that we took the pictures, even if, yeah, from the western part, the reason we took the pictures more toward the west is the grade change between Lancaster Avenue and the parking lot is less severe at that end. When you get down to the main entrance, there is a significant grade change. I don't have all the grades here, but I think it's at least 15, maybe 18 feet at that very corner.
It's certainly, that's the case with Micro Center, that, you know.
On both sides.
Oh, right.
Right.
But I haven't seen anything that would suggest that you don't have visibility to these sites if the PNC Bank isn't there. I'm not,
Well, I would,
you know, there are angles and
if you would look
stuff
at our-
involved, and I have issues with that.
if you look at our photos, you know, you can see that the bank is not blocking the views. We took many photos. You can see that it's the other features of the site that are blocking the views, the topography, the setback, the trees, the old massing of the building itself. You know, we're not claiming the
Right,
PNC
but-
is a
but
hardship because it is, at that point, as someone said, you know, that is so much up higher. You couldn't have seen in that spot anyway because of the grade is so high there.
And it is not directly in front of the two new facades that we're proposing. It's set off to the side.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is the suggestion that there's a photo that is being submitted for our consideration that shows the PNC Bank and how it relates to the
No,
subject property?
what I was suggesting is I have photos A through J here, so many photos
You do?
that show the view is obscured without, I didn't have to get any of the bank blocking us. There were many other views of the site that are blocking the view. It's not the bank, and you can see that,
That,
you know, on the aerial that,
right, but the photographs don't reflect the new facade and the fact that the new facade is further east.
right. The bank is not
So,
our
I mean,
problem.
I understand the limitations.
Right.
You can only take pictures of what exists.
Right.
You know, renderings that would suggest what the sight lines are with the new facade from points, you know, the intersection at the First Monument sign west of Radnor Chester Road all the way through would be the relevant consideration here. And yes, you've got photographs. I'm not saying you don't have photographs. And there are, from time to time, obstructed views. But I'm trying to get a sense of the magnitude of the hardship here, because depending on where you are, you might be able to see it, might not be able to see it. And folks should, you know, if they're driving by, they should be paying attention to the road.
Yeah, and we're not suggesting that people should be turning their head, but if you look at A5B, you know, we took this at the most inopportune, I would argue, position where the grade was the least. And I think what this is showing is that, you know, because of the building overhang, because of the large setback, the cars, the trees, you know, what's really visible is the large gray facade. That's where the signs, it's crying out really that the sign should be up there.
Right. And then it gets to the issue of the size of the sign.
Right. And again, some of the reasons we also showed these, you know, the design review board, they look at those kinds of things as well. What is appropriate and what fits. They were okay with it. And I submit to you, when you look at this expanse, you know, I think it will, you know, make the building look better. It'll break it up to have some signage on there. Ironically, the way the code is written, it says every business can have a wall sign of 60 feet. So if we divided this building up into 10 tenants, which would be really hard for Ken because it's hard enough to get to, each tenant could have a 60-foot sign. Now they'd have to be lower. We would still need the relief, but as the overall size, I don't think that's really the issue as far as I think what we're asking for is reasonable when you look at it in that way.
Any other questions of this witness? Mr. Brosman, if you want to finish up and move your exhibits, or if you have
Yeah,
other
I'd like
questions.
to move my exhibits. I gave a lengthy opening remark, so I don't think I have to repeat them, but I would.
Okay.
I think the photos kind of speak for themselves, and we hope you'll consider this as a dimensional variance that it is.
Is there anyone in the audience who cares to be heard on this question? Seeing none, motion.
Motion to approve variance under section 280-123B of the code to permit the installation of one wall sign in excess of 60 square feet and two wall signs higher than 15 feet above existing grade in accordance with the documentation testimony and specifically Exhibit 6.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Discussion of the motion. My thoughts are that I think the arguments regarding hardship, and I use that term pretty loosely, were reasonably presented, and I think that we shouldn't be blind to the challenges faced by retail. And again, we talked about a balance in the last one. I think here you need to have a balance because we can abide very strictly by the code and have a bunch of empty stores up and down Route 30 that will be in full compliance with the zoning code, but I'm not sure that does any favors. Any more discussion? I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Pressing on. Appeal 3022, Belrose Lane. Belrose Lane? Okay. All right, we are going to take a break. It's 8:13 now. We're going to start at 8:20.
Those are yours. All right, I want to leave my stuff. Good luck.
It's clear that you built it, and then you realize it, and you're permanent.
We're waiting for the solicitor to vote. We're going to start.
You're saying it's a big one?
I know it's the floodplain.
It shows the picture of the lattice. To make your stuff in a reference. I think I have one in my house. I want to wait some picture. Oh, there you go.
So I did kind of build in the cracks of the line. If you're good at review, we'll do a second. If you need it. Yeah. I'm 99% positive on that. Say every other word.
We're going back into session. Okay, Appeal 3022. The applicant, Corey McCann, property located at 336 Belrose Lane and zoned R3 residential, seeks relief from Section 280-109 fences and walls to install a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence along southern border of property, connecting at southeast corner of property and extending along eastern border of property. Applicants requesting a variance for addition of 1 foot of lattice over a 6-foot privacy fence previously mentioned for a total height of 7 feet. Please introduce yourself and be sworn in.
I'm Corey McCann.
Sir, if you'll raise your right hand, you do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. McCann, tell us about your property, about the relief you're seeking and why.
Our house happens to be the last single-family home on the road and at the edge of the neighborhood. The property next to us is a duplex. This is our house, the White House here. And then the duplex next door is a half residence and then half commercial. This is Euro Coachwork over here. And then this half of the duplex is associated with this business. And then this hedge along here in this shot. This hedge along here, which has currently been removed and is just a dirt patch now, in preparation for the fence going in on October 10th. This is our neighbor's backyard, and then this is the parking lot for Euro Coach Work. This is the edge of the business. We would like to put a 6-foot privacy fence in and then additional lattice over the top of it. It's basically like this. Again, this whole hedge has been removed. And then the addition of the 1-foot lattice, basically just for additional occlusion of line of sight and noise reduction, as there's a good bit of noise that comes out of the Euro Coach Work during the day. The doors are usually open, and it's pneumatic drills and such other things associated with the car garage. And then also the train, which is visible in this shot, runs directly behind our yard and adjacent to the back of the property. So
I'm going to try to work us through here because we need to create a record for a couple different purposes. But you had previously submitted a plan with your application. The plan was prepared by Mominy Inc.
Yes,
and looking for a date on it or some other identification.
March 26, 2018?
March 26, 2018. And on the plan, there is green marking along the border of the property to the Coachworks property that, as you've described here, and also running at close to a right angle along the property, and it's marked to be Conrail Amtrak. So that green marker designates the area where you would propose the 6-foot fence and the 1-foot lattice.
yes, sir.
All right, and I'm going to mark this plan as A1.
Mr. Chairman, actually, there are a number of exhibits. Maybe we ought to make sure that.
John, I would.
I did not number my exhibits.
That's fine, that's fine. John, why don't you walk us through on the record how you would propose to number the exhibits?
I would respectfully label the application A1.
Okay.
A2 would be the copy of their deed. A3 would be the copy of the plan with the fence shown in green rather than A1, if that pleases the board.
That's fine. You promoted me to a judge, that's good.
And there are various photographs, and in the order in which I have them, I just say the photographs would all be A4. Would that be sufficient?
Right, the photos as submitted with the application, which are among the ones, which include the ones that have been shown so far in testimony and others, will be together marked as A4?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I believe that with the photographs, that's all the exhibits the applicant has handed up.
Yes.
All right. Did you have any conversation with any neighbors relating to this in any respect?
Our neighbors in the duplex next they're okay with it.
Okay,
And
but
then our other neighbors to the western border are also okay with it. We're friendly with it.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, the neighbors have no problems with it. Our eastern and western neighbors we've discussed it with.
okay, now to clarify, you don't have anything in writing to that effect,
No,
and
sir.
those folks are not here?
Sorry?
Are those folks
They're
here?
not here.
Okay. Okay, but for whatever value the board wants to put on it, we take your testimony that they've voiced no objection. Do members of the board have questions for the applicant?
what material is the fence made out of? Is it white fence? Is it wooden fence? What's the sort of, what's it
We're
look
going to
like?
go with vinyl, is it Arctic blue, kind of a bluish gray?
Vinyl with a wood grain.
I'm sorry, you'll have to stand up, be sworn in, and speak into the microphone.
Raise your right hand. Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth,
I do.
and state your full name.
Natalie, Natalie, Hep, Hoepp, and we're married.
Please, go ahead. Tell us about the fence.
The fence is
Speak into the
vinyl.
microphone.
The fence is vinyl, and it has a wood grain, so it looks like wood. And then the lattice top matches it, and the color is called Arctic blue, and it's kind of a dark blue-gray.
Other questions? Okay, you will move your exhibits for admission, so you're now a lawyer, okay? Does anyone want to be heard on this application?
Can I make any other comment on it? Sorry, can I make any other comment on it?
Sure.
Okay. I think the pictures speak for themselves, and one comment I had just for the board's knowledge is the body shop, as you know, is R3. I think it's non-conforming, and they have basically paved the yard and are parking cars back there and using the twin as a fender storage. So this fence is in part, actually it's primarily to block the body shop, not our neighbors. So we have a good relationship with our neighbors and would hate to see any disruption of that. So we have discussed the fence with them for sure.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve a variance under section 28109 to permit a 6-foot fence with a 1-foot additional lattice above the fence in accordance with Exhibit A4, or meaning in the dimensions and locations in A4.
Is there a second to that?
I would amend that. It's A3. The plan is A3.
Oh, right, A3, sorry. Correct, right, which is right 4. Yep.
So amended, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it, too.
Quick conversation, I assume that to the extent it would need to be addressed in the order, this would be shown as being based upon the hardship associated with the industrial use neighboring the residentially zoned property?
Yeah, sure, we can put that in.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, Appeal 3023. The applicant, Villanova University, property located at 800 East Lancaster Avenue and zoned PL Planned Institutional, seeks to construct a campus gateway and pedestrian entrance to the westernmost edge of main campus on Lancaster Avenue. Applicant seeks a variance from Section 280-123D1 of the zoning code, which limits freestanding signs in the PI Planned Institutional District to 10 feet above mean grade. Applicant seeks such other relief as may be required.
Thank you. Nick Camellia representing the applicant on this matter. Just by way of brief opening, in the application, you'll see what Villanova is trying to do here is replicate a sign they had years ago. Matter of fact, you know it's years ago because it says Villanova College. And it's basically, it was pretty close to the same location as where this sign is being located. And this sign is being located, you see from the drawings there, as you enter campus from the west going east, as you cross 320, right after the campus corner. If everyone knows where the campus corner is, Villanova is part of their project going on Lancaster Avenue. Have pulled the sidewalks back. They have, the only crossings they have on Lancaster Avenue are at 320, across the pedestrian bridge, as well as up on Ithan Avenue. Everything else will be totally fenced except for those areas to prevent jaywalking. And the purpose of this is to make it attractive so that the students would cross at 320, not jaywalk, and then walk right on the campus from the western end of campus. So Chris? And the issue here is, obviously, since it's an archway-type ornamental sign, the clearing here has to be a certain height. So we're proposing a clearing of 8 feet. I'll note that if you look in the Wayne Business District, I believe the requirement for clearing may be 9 feet or 10 feet, Kevin. And I think I have it here, I'll have to look. But it's actually higher than what we're proposing. And in the PI institutional, the top of a sign, and this would be considered a ground sign, freestanding sign, excuse me, be a freestanding sign. The top of a sign is limited to 10 feet. This is 12 feet. The very top here is 12 feet. You'll see on the sign here that we've drawn a dotted line as to where the 10 feet would be calculated, and from here to here is actually 8 feet. In commercial districts, the requirement is 15 feet, but in the PI and I think PB and maybe a couple others, it is 10 feet. So that's why we're before the board.
So raise your right hand. Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
And state your full name, please.
Christopher Kowalski, K-O-V-O-L-S-K-I.
And Chris, what is your position at Villanova?
Assistant Vice President for Government Relations and External Affairs.
And I've marked and handed up, and you reviewed A1. Does that application properly represent Villanova's intending to do here this evening?
Yes, it does.
And I've also handed up as A2 a deed which describes a deed description for this particular area and the deed for this particular property?
Yes.
Now, looking at, I've pre-marked one. You don't have, this is a larger one that makes it easier to see. I believe the board has a smaller version of this, but I'm going to mark, I've already marked as A9. I'll hand up to the board. This would be A9. I believe I already pre-marked A1 through A8.
Thank you.
Now, Chris, first looking at the photograph to the left, can you tell the board what this represents and the time frame of when this existed on campus?
Sure. This photo is from the 1920s. We found this in our university archives. This is a walkway from Lancaster Avenue to previous versions of both Tolentine Hall on the left and the monastery on the right. Both of those buildings, after this picture was taken, burned down and have since been rebuilt. And this pedestrian access no longer exists. But this was a main pedestrian entranceway onto the college's campus at the time from Route 30. You can get a sense for the scale of this, because right behind the bush here, you can see the stone pillars and caps with the crosses that were since relocated to Church Walk, which are now incorporated into the new pedestrian bridge. So you can get a sense for the scale.
Chris, I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4. Can you tell the board what A4 represents?
A4 is a aerial photograph of main campus with a yellow circle over the area adjacent to Campus Corner Pizza and the part of the western edge of our main campus.
Okay, and Campus Corner Pizza, where is the dividing line between the commercial district and the PI district?
Roughly the property line that is next to the building.
Showing you what's been marked as A5. Can you tell the board what A5 represents?
A5 is a rendering, a construction drawing that shows the plans for the sidewalk project that was completed this summer. For those that have driven by the campus, you've seen the project take shape over the months of June, July, and August. Continuing now, we moved the sidewalk back from the curb line. We widened it. The goal there was to meet some needs for the university, for our pedestrians that use that walkway, but also to address some of the concerns that the township has raised over the years about improving pedestrian safety along Route 30. So as part of that project, in addition to widening the sidewalk for the entire length between Campus Corner and 9th and Avenue, we've added the lights that you can see. They're on now. They look great. We're putting gates at the existing driveway at O'Dwyer. You can see that right here, just to the east of the proposed gateway that we're talking about tonight. And then we'll add a gate at the driveway that leads to the church. So in essence, once the fencing is complete and the fence contractor is out there daily, you will not have an opportunity to enter campus except at this pedestrian gateway that we're talking about, the pedestrian bridge, or 9th and Avenue. And it's to disincentivize jaywalking.
And this pedestrian gateway, is it close to a particular intersection?
It is very close to the intersection of Route 30, 320, Aldwin Lane, and Kenilworth.
Now, was there a reason that, it appears as if, at least, it appears as if that this sign is pretty attractive. Is there a reason to make it attractive in this type of sign?
We wanted to distinguish the pedestrian gateway to campus from the public sidewalk. The pathway to Campus Corner has always been there, a very nondescript concrete path. But with this work, we wanted to clearly delineate the way to campus versus the public sidewalk. And with the location of this picture in our archives, we thought this would be a great way to signal to those traveling from west to east on Lancaster Avenue that people had arrived at the property of Villanova University.
Okay, and looking at A9 and the sign in particular, the A9 shows the dimensions, but if you can, the lettering itself, how tall is the lettering itself?
I believe the lettering, each letter is 1 foot high.
And as to the clearance from the bottom of University to grade, how high is that?
8 feet.
And to the top of the, very top of the Villanova portion of the sign, how high is that?
At its maximum, it's 12 feet. It's an arch, so the spots that are 12 feet are fairly minimal.
Is there a reason why it's 8 feet high at the very bottom?
We were concerned about clearance. We wanted to make sure that there was enough even for our tallest members of our community, but also we didn't want it to be an attractive nuisance or a danger as well for those who are walking under it.
So in fact, this is probably, the jaywalking is a nuisance, and this is an attraction to prevent the jaywalking.
I would say that jaywalking is a danger, and making sure that as much pedestrian traffic as possible from our campus and to our campus goes through this pathway versus across the street. This will help with that.
Is this sign going to be lit?
There would be no lighting.
Now, did you proceed the design review board for this?
We did. We went to the design review board in August.
I'm going to show you A6. And what happened? When did you become aware that we have to appear before the zoning hearing board?
At the design review board. We were unaware that we were exceeding this. It was not something that was brought to our attention that we realized until the meeting that night. It was after the dialogue with the design review board, you know, the look and feel of the sign, the height, you know, they too were concerned about attractive nuisance, but the township zoning officer revealed to us that we were exceeding the maximum height at that time and suggested we perhaps come to the zoning hearing board.
Okay, and A6 and A7, they basically, again, show the location of where the sign would be located?
Correct. This is facing westward.
Mr. Cornelia, the A8 and A9 are together the specs for the sign that you...
Yes, I'll introduce A8 too. Okay. So just A6, that is facing eastward, correct?
Into campus,
In the
correct,
campus.
yes.
And A7 is facing westward?
Correct.
And there's a sign there that you see, it looks like a blue sign, kind of at the entrance of the stone pillars.
Yes.
What is that?
That's for Campus Corner Pizza.
Okay, and
I'm
what's
sorry, what?
Campus Corner Pizza.
And what is the height of that sign?
It is over 10 feet.
Is it over 12 feet? I believe it's 15 feet.
I believe it's 15 feet as well.
But actually, that district permits signs to be 15 feet.
We are immediately adjacent to that district, yes.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked as A8, it's been part of the packet. Can you just describe, again, we showed the sign, but if you can describe the other items in A8?
Sure. This is a construction drawing that displays the different materials for not only the sign, but the street lamps that we've installed as part of this sideway project, the fencing that will be there, the materials for the pillars, and of course the dimensions on the sign.
That's all I have.
Any questions for this witness? Any other witnesses, Nick?
No, that's all.
You want to move your exhibits?
Move the exhibits to be part of the record, A1 through A9, please.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to be heard on this item? I guess before questions, I guess the one thought was, in terms of the old sign, you could have consulted with counsel, who may have recalled when he was on campus, they may have had that.
It was a university when I went. It was a university when I went. It wasn't many years a university, but someone brought that up when I met with Chris.
He doesn't have an alibi for the fires that burned down both of those buildings, so he wasn't going to admit to the sign.
All right, questions from the board?
I can't hear you. Brad.
Okay, so we're tied in by A8 to the precise design. No light, the lighting point, I was a little surprised by it, but no lights.
Correct.
Okay, that being said, anyone care to make a motion?
I move that the applicant be granted the relief requested for the sign in accordance with the plans and testimony entered into the record.
Second to the motion?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good luck with your project, your
Thank
continued
you.
project.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.